Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to be talking about a new Sonos S2 release 14.6, and this is both a software release for the Android/iOS version, the S2 controller, as well as the firmware on your Sonos hardware. So what does this release bring to you? Let's stay on and find out. So in my usual fashion, I'll give you all the updates up front, so you don't have time to stay on throughout the whole video. You don't have to, and you can go right after my update. Now, there are two major updates. The first is that it makes the Sonos Roam pairing and the setup process a little bit easier. So I won't go too much into that because I don't think the Sonos Roam is a highly popular product, not as much as the Sonos Beam Gen 2 update, which they also brought with 14.6, and that is the heights channel adjustment for Atmos effect in the Sonos Beam Gen 2, which has been released about half a year ago and is capable of producing Atmos effects. Same like the Sonos Arc, except the Sonos Arc got the heights adjustment probably about a year back already. Now, it is not so straightforward to get heights adjustment on the Sonos Beam. So if you have the time to stay on throughout the rest of my video, I welcome you to, and I will discuss a little bit about why it is not as straightforward to get heights channel adjustment on the Sonos Beam Gen 2, even though it is Atmos capable and by right has a heights channel. So since you have the time to stay around, I will take my time and go through with you the whole timeline for the last 2 years of updates coming from Sonos. So starting from version 12, we started around in June of 2020. So version 12 was released for 2020, version 13 was 2021, and version 14, which is where we are now, is for 2022. Individual versions. Now, let me pull out the timeline for version 12, and this is for the 2020 releases. Now, if you take a look at the timeline, I have kind of like dotted the whole timeline. Like the whole line is 1 year, and every dot represents 1 quarter. So you have the first dot starting in January, the second dot is in April, and then July and October, and towards the end of the year, and so on and so forth. Now, if you look at 2020, all right, the first update for version 12.0 came only in June, and that was to coincide with the launch of the Sonos Arc. And the Sonos Arc is a big thing, right? And oh yeah, almost 2 years after launch, people are still having difficulties trying to get their hands on the Sonos Arc. Supply issues caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, but never mind that, not the discussion for today. So the point being that 12.0 was released somewhere in the middle of the year, and that was in June of 2020. And with that came the Sonos Arc. So it's a new product launch with a new version number coinciding with the product launch. Version 12.1 came later, and that was about 3 months later already, and it brought about enhanced setup capabilities with the whole Bluetooth low energy, I think, or some NFC in the newer speakers. The Sonos Sub Gen 3 and the Sonos Fives, the new ones, they were capable of a much easier setup. So they have been fine-tuning the setup process over the years, but a small update. Now, there are plenty of small little updates throughout the months which are not mentioned on this timeline because the Sonos Arc at launch was struggling a lot with its base duty. So there was kind of static, and thankfully it wasn't a hardware issue, and Sonos managed to fix that with firmware updates over the months following the launch of the Sonos Arc. And in the middle of Q4, they launched 12.2, which brought about the final improvement to the Sonos Arc voicing capabilities. And you will realize that the dialogue coming out from the Sonos Arc was actually enhanced during that release, by that release. And the last update of the year 2020, which came in towards the end of November, I think, it was 12.2.2, and this version brought about a very important update, which was for dual sub support. And I kind of went crazy with that, and because I have 2 subs at home, I have the Sub Gen 2, I have the Sub Gen 3, and it was a no-brainer. I wanted the 2 of them together to see what kind of power the Sonos system was able to unleash on all my movies and music. It didn't disappoint. I really like it, but should you run out and buy a second sub? No, not really, because it's not a cheap sub. Unless they launch the Sonos Sub Mini, which I've talked about in my previous video. Don't know whether that's a product that they're going to be launching next month, actually, 25th of May. If you are interested in that video, do check it out. If I remember, I'll put the link right up here. But whether they actually allow the pairing of a dual sub with a mini and a regular size sub or not is unsure. I don't know whether they will allow that. It won't probably gel very well, but the big sub and a small sub, they actually can target different frequency and thus even out the frequency response for your bass duties. So let's fast forward to version 13, and version 13 was released for 2021. And instead of the first version of 12.0 being launched in June to coincide with a new product launch, which was the Sonos Arc in the year of 2020, the version 13 was launched, 13.0, launched in March, right, which was to coincide with the launch of a new product, which is the Sonos Roam. The Sonos Roam might not have been a very popular speaker, but Sonos does support it, and throughout the whole year, even right up to now, this current version, they are still making tweaks to the Sonos Roam to make it a better speaker, more usable, easier to pair, easier to stereo pair, and so on and so forth. Sonos do stay committed to their product lines, even if it is not the best-selling product in their lineup. Version 13.1, which was launched towards the end of Q2 of the year 2021, brought about a very important update, which is the height adjustment for the Sonos Arc soundbar. Now, the Sonos Arc soundbar has two discrete standalone upward firing cones, which is built into the soundbar itself. So the sound effects that you're hearing from the heights channel, they are actually generated by those two discrete cones with its own amplifier. Now that differs from the Sonos Beam, and this is the part that I have to explain to you a little bit more about why it wasn't so straightforward to get heights adjustment in the Sonos Beam Gen 2. So when the Sonos Beam Gen 2 launched, I asked Sonos a very, very direct question, which they couldn't provide the answer right up front, but they did get back to me after 2 days to confirm it. Was the Sonos Beam Gen 2 capable of doing heights adjustment like the Sonos Arc? Actually, the answer was no at that point. But half a year later, in this particular release for 14.6, they have actually enabled it. Now, why is it not so straightforward? Because unlike the Sonos Arc, the Sonos Beam Gen 2 is actually simulating the heights channel. So you don't actually get two discrete cones, you don't actually get two discrete amplifiers powering those two cones, which are firing upwards physically. It is a phase array, and through some computational magic, through some software, they are able to generate the phantom channel for heights channels. So is it as straightforward as diverting just more power to the two cones that are firing upwards like in the Arc? No, it's not. So you probably got to do some magic there in terms of software, in terms of computationally adjusting for the heights channel. So it wasn't so straightforward, but Sonos being Sonos, half a year later, the function is there, and that is the main highlight of 14.6. But I'm going to stop right there because we are still on the timeline of version 13, and we are now in the mid of the year. Now, 13.2 brought about some bug fixes. Okay, nothing much there. 13.3, towards the end of Q3, brought about some Sonos Roam update, charging ability, maybe something like that. 13.3.2 brought about bug fixes. Well, nothing important and nothing significant there, but towards the end of the year, another big feature launched, which was the DTS enablement. So basically, your Sonos Beam Gen 2 and every other product that is capable of producing sound in the soundbar format and connecting to your home theater actually can now decode DTS. Not DTS-X for 3D surround, but just the regular DTS, not even the DTS HD. And that was kind of like to coincide with the Sonos Beam Gen 2. So it was still a significant update of sorts. Now, the last update came in the form of 13.4.1, which was towards the end of the year. It was to enable Amazon Music HD Ultra, right? High resolution music from Amazon Music. But there's nothing new in terms of hardware. There are well, every release they will say is bug fixes. We don't know what bugs they have fixed. So that ended up version 13 for the year 2021. Now let's jump ahead to version 14. Version 14 for the year 2022. Now year 2022 was an important year. Now why is it an important year? Well, because the whole COVID-19 pandemic is kind of like slowing down outside China, and everybody is kind of like returning back to work, trying to live with the whole pandemic. The whole COVID-19 thing is getting more endemic than anything. But okay, sorry, we're talking about Sonos here. Version 14, 2022. First update in January. Wow, 14.0 released in January. But this time round, unlike the year 2020, which they coincide the first 12.0 with a Sonos Arc, 2021 they coincide 13.0 with the Sonos Roam in March. Now, January 14.0. What's the new product? Actually, no new product. Well, they allowed some account deletion direct from the iOS app itself. I don't know. I mean, this is probably enforced by Apple due to whatever rules and regulations that they have. I don't actually know. So, but that was 14.0. Unexciting. They somehow skipped 14.1, or they didn't put the changelog for 14.1, because I was quite sure I saw another skip version here, which is not on the timeline, which was 14.3, which I updated to, but they didn't have the changelog, and I didn't see any significant changes. But anyway, 14.2, direct EQ setting. So now from the now playing screen, from the volume setting control, there's an icon there. You can click on it and you will be able to access the settings control directly, and you can adjust EQ, both the bass and the treble, but well, small little things like that. And it was 14.2. So still no major update, still no major product announcement. 14.4. So again, they skipped the 14.3, which has no changelog, but I was quite sure I updated to that. But 14.4 brought about a Sonos Roam stereo pairing. It enabled the Sonos Roam to be able to repair itself in a stereo pair after one breaks away from a network. I didn't really care too much about that. I wasn't in the habit of putting two Sonos Roam and walking around with two Sonos Roam. I don't know when I'll do that, but well, I did do the Sonos Roam stereo test. It sounded a lot better in stereo. But again, not an important update. Today, 14.6, the most recent release, just released only about 2 days ago. It enabled heights adjustment on the Sonos Beam Gen 2 for the Atmos sound effect. So I've explained why it wasn't as straightforward to implement at launch, but half a year later, they have since implemented it. So now, 25th of May, they are going to be making a product announcement. So I've highlighted that in yellow, new product launch. With that, I actually think they might be running out of version numbers though. In the year of 2020 with version 12, they ended the year with 12.2.2. So they had many numbers to play with. In the year of 2021 with version 13, they ended with 13.4.1. So still a lot of numbers to go, and that was already at the end of the year. But now we are at version 14.6 and it is only April. The fun thing is that they have been releasing a lot of updates over the last few months, right? In fact, one every month, in January, in February, in March, and now in April, they have launched 14.6. But 14.6 already in April. What about May, June, July, and all the months that follow? Are they going to do version 15? Because the numbers are going to run out. But let's not look too much at the numbers right now. I used to think that Sonos was a little bit more disciplined in terms of versioning their software, with the big number change being a new product launch, with the second number change being a new feature, with the third number change being a small feature. But it's not so sure now. The next product launch, are they going to call it 14.7 or 14.8? I don't know. Or are they going to launch with 15.0, which will break the trend, because it is not a new year yet. It is not 2023, but they're going to be skipping a whole version number. I don't know. If this is your kind of thing, and if you're interested in Sonos or any wireless audiophile products, do stay tuned to this channel. Better still, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell so that you can be notified as soon as I get my hands on new Sonos products. And I have been invited to the Sonos product launch. So I will kind of hear firsthand, and I will release the information to you as soon as the embargo is lifted. So if you're not already subscribed, do subscribe and you will be notified of any new releases through this particular channel. So that's all I have to say today. I thought it was going to be a short video and I thought I will make it under 5 minutes, but it doesn't seem so. Sorry if I've been talking too much. In any case, if you like my blabbering, I'll see you in my next video.